I never meant to enter her world, yet her lust was unstoppable. The fall. The research vessel Horizon tumbled through the anomaly, its stabilizers screaming in protest as gravity waves tore at its hull. Inside the cockpit, Dr. Elias Mercer fought the controls, his dark hair plastered against his forehead with sweat.
Mayday, Mayday.
Research vessel Horizon encountering severe gravitational distortion. Coordinates unknown. Systems failing, he transmitted. Knowing the message would likely never reach Alliance headquarters, the purple-hued wormhole had appeared without warning during his routine survey of the Cygnus expanse, swallowing his ship before defensive protocols could engage. The vessel's hull groaned as reality itself seemed to stretch around him. Emergency lights bathed the cabin in crimson as Elias strapped himself into the crash harness. His years of xenobiological research, cataloging the universe's diversity of life, had never prepared him for becoming an unwilling explorer himself. When the Horizon finally burst through the anomaly's membrane, a world of crystalline formations and violet skies filled the viewscreen. Gravity reasserted itself with crushing force, sending the ship plummeting toward a forest of towering translucent structures that glittered like diamonds under twin moons. "Computer emergency landing protocols," Elias shouted, feeling ribs crack as the ship bounced against crystal spires. Systems failed in cascading sequence until only the emergency thrusters responded, barely slowing his descent before the Horizon crashed into a field of luminous flora, skidding to a halt at the edge of an iridescent lake. Consciousness came and went as Elias dragged himself from the wreckage. Blood clouded his vision. His expedition suit's medical systems injected emergency stimulants, enough to keep him moving despite a shattered leg and internal bleeding. The alien air tasted of ozone and something sweet like honey as he collapsed onto soft, moss-like ground that pulsed with gentle light. Through the haze of pain he glimpsed movement, a figure approaching through the crystalline forest. Slender and tall, its skin rippled with patterns of blue and gold luminescence, where a human face might be. This being had only a smooth surface that shimmered with changing colors, currently pulsing with amber and violet hues. Elias tried to speak, but blood bubbled between his lips. The figure knelt beside him, tilting its featureless face. Though it had no visible eyes, Elias felt himself being examined. When the being extended a graceful limb toward him, light flowed from its fingertips, enveloping his broken body in warmth. A sensation like silk unfurled inside his mind, curious, cautious, concerned. Without words, he understood that the being was named Shaya, and she belonged to the Lumori, the crystalline world's indigenous species. As consciousness faded, Elias felt himself being lifted with surprising strength. His last coherent thought was wonder at the gentle, mental touch that now cradled his thoughts as carefully as Shaya carried his broken body through the glittering forest toward a structure that rose like a cathedral, of light against the violet sky. Chromatic healing, Elias awoke to a symphony of light and sensation. He lay on a bed of luminous moss within a crystalline chamber, whose walls pulsed with gentle blues and greens. His expedition suit had been carefully removed, replaced by a gossamer covering that felt like liquid silk against his skin. More remarkably, the searing pain of his injuries had dulled to a distant ache. "Where am I?" he whispered, though no one seemed present to hear. In response, the chamber's colors shifted to vibrant purples. A moment later, Shaya emerged through what appeared to be a solid crystal wall, her form seeming to materialize from light itself. Up close, Elias could better appreciate her alien beauty. Tall and graceful, with skin that flowed with patterns of luminescence like living circuitry. Her fingers tapered elegantly, and as she moved toward him, her entire being rippled with colors that somehow conveyed meaning. A sensation of inquiry brushed against his consciousness. "I understand you, somehow," Elias murmured, wincing as he tried to sit up. "My name is Elias Mercer. I'm a xenobiologist from Earth Alliance." Shaya tilted her featureless face, sending a complex pattern of gold and amber across her skin. Without words, Elias understood her response. "I am Shaya, third resonator of the Lumori. Your vessel breached our sanctuary. Your body was breaking. You saved me," he said, carefully touching his ribs, finding them inexplicably healed. "How long have I been here?" 7 lunar cycles, came the impression in his mind, accompanied by an image of the twin moons completing their dance across the violet sky. "A week? That's impossible. My injuries would have taken months to heal." Shaya approached, her movements fluid as water. She extended her hand, hesitating just above his chest. "May I?" When he nodded, her fingertips made contact with his skin. Immediately, warmth suffused him, accompanied by images and sensations. Her healing methods involved manipulating the energy fields that the Lumori perceived as the foundation of all matter. "The resonance between us is unexpected," she conveyed, a ripple of surprise flowing through her touch. "Your neural patterns adapted to our healing harmonics. No outsider has ever resonated before." Over the following days, as Elias regained strength, Shaya helped him understand her world. The Lumori existed in symbiosis with their crystalline environment, drawing energy from and contributing to the massive formations that dominated Lumora's landscape. These crystals weren't merely geological formations, but semi-sentient repositories of collective memory and energy. When Elias expressed his desire to repair his ship, Shaya's colors darkened with concern. "The Council forbids outsider technology near the core," she explained, revealing that Lumora's central crystal, the heart of their civilization, had begun destabilizing, threatening their entire existence. "Perhaps I could help," Elias offered, his scientific curiosity awakening alongside a growing fascination with Shaya herself. Her colors shifted to a warning red. "The Council fears contamination. I risk exile by helping you already." "Then why did you save me?" Shaya's surface rippled with a delicate pattern Elias hadn't seen before. Something like embarrassment mingled with defiance. "Your mind called to mine across the void," she admitted. "Even before you fell from the sky, I felt your curiosity, your wonder at the universe. The Council would say I am corrupted by your alienness, but I believe our meeting has purpose." As she escorted him outside for the first time, Elias gasped at the breathtaking landscape. Crystal spires reached skyward like frozen waterfalls, refracting light in cascades of color. But beneath the beauty, he noticed concerning fracture patterns spreading through the larger formations. "Your world is dying," he whispered. Shaya's response held the weight of unspoken grief. "Yes, and we are forbidden from seeking outside help." When her fingers tentatively intertwined with his, Elias felt something unexpected. Not just the now familiar mental connection, but a flutter of something warmer, something dangerously close to desire. Forbidden knowledge. "The ship's quantum core could theoretically stabilize your crystal matrix," Elias explained, projecting the schematics from his salvage datapad. 3 weeks had passed since his crash, and the horizon now lay partly disassembled in a hidden grotto, concealed from the Council's watchful sensors. Shaya absorbed the information, her luminescence pulsing with rapid calculations. She had proven to be not just a healer but a brilliant physicist by any standard, quickly grasping concepts that had taken humans generations to develop. "The resonance frequencies match," she confirmed, her colors brightening with cautious hope. "But extracting your core would leave you stranded here forever." The unspoken question hung between them. Would that be such a terrible fate? Their collaboration had evolved into something neither had anticipated. Each day working together strengthened their neural bond until Elias could sense Shaya's emotions even without physical contact. Likewise, she had begun to display remarkably human expressions through her luminescent patterns: curiosity, frustration, amusement, and increasingly, affection. "My life's work has been understanding how different species adapt and connect," Elias said, reaching out to trace the light patterns flowing across her arm. "I never imagined becoming part of my own research." Shaya's surface rippled with the pattern he now recognized as pleasure. "The Council would call this abomination, a resonator bonding with an alien mind." "And what would you call it?" he asked softly. Before she could respond, alarming vibrations shook the grotto. Crystal shards rained down as a fracture raced across the ceiling. Without hesitation, Shaya pulled Elias close, enveloping them both in a protective field of energy. "The degradation accelerates," she conveyed, fear coloring her thoughts. "We have less time than predicted." That evening, they stood before the entrance to Lumora's forbidden archives, ancient repositories of knowledge sealed by the Council generations ago. Shaya hesitated, her colors shifting between determination and dread. "If discovered here, my punishment would be permanent dissonance, the severing of my connection to the collective consciousness." Elias touched her face gently. "We don't have to do this." Her response flowed into his mind with fierce intensity. "My people face extinction because of ancient fears. I choose knowledge over ignorance even at this cost." The archive revealed truths long suppressed. Lumora had not always been isolated. In the distant past, the Lumori had welcomed visitors from across the stars, creating powerful symbiotic relationships that strengthened their crystal core. It was only after a catastrophic betrayal, details deliberately obscured in the records, that the Council had established isolation as their primary law. More significantly, they discovered that the neural bond forming between them wasn't unprecedented. Ancient Lumori had formed similar connections with compatible species, creating resonance patterns that could stabilize fracturing crystal structures. The very thing they fear might save us. Shia realized, her colors shifting to the deep blue of revelation. Their return journey through the crystal caverns took them past the massive central core, a cathedral-sized formation now visibly cracking with alarming fracture lines. As they watched from a hidden observation point, several council members gathered below, their collective luminescence dimmed with concern. They know the end approaches but remain bound by tradition, Shia observed sadly. A sudden shift in the energy field alerted them to danger moments before harsh red light flooded their hiding place. They turned to find themselves surrounded by guardian resonators, their surfaces pulsing with accusatory patterns. Shia of the Third Resonance. You are charged with treason against the Council and contamination through outsider contact, came the formal charge, broadcast on frequencies that made Elias wince in pain. As the Guardians moved to separate them, Elias felt Shia's panic surge through their bond, not fear for herself but for him. The moment their connection began to stretch, something unexpected happened. The crystal formations around them began to glow, responding to the unique harmonic created by their shared resonance. The Guardians hesitated, their colors shifting to patterns of confusion and ancestral recognition. One stepped forward, ancient authority emanating from its being. This harmony, it mirrors the primal resonance from before the severing. For the first time, Elias directed his thoughts deliberately through the bond. Tell them what we discovered. Show them. With desperate courage, Shia projected the archive's knowledge directly to the assembled Guardians. The forgotten history, the potential salvation through connection rather than isolation. As understanding rippled through the collective consciousness, the fractures in the central core momentarily stabilized, responding to the harmonic created by Elias and Shia's neural bond. Living proof that what they had discovered might indeed save Lumora from destruction. Sacrifice and symphony. The council chamber pulsed with agitation as 11 Lumori elders surrounded Shia and Elias. Their surfaces flickered with rapid communications, some defensive, others curious, a few openly hostile. The central crystal dais where they stood amplified every emotional resonance, making the tension palpable. The archives were sealed for our protection, insisted Elder Voran, the council's leader, his surface radiating stern crimson patterns. This human represents precisely the danger our ancestors foresaw. Shia stood tall beside Elias, her luminescence steady and determined. Then explain why the core stabilized in his presence. Explain why our resonance patterns temporarily halted the fracturing. The evidence was difficult to dismiss. Since their discovery in the archives 4 days ago, the monitoring crystals had confirmed a 30% decrease in degradation rates whenever Elias and Shia were in proximity to the core. Elder Lisseth, the youngest council member, stepped forward, her patterns showing cautious support. Our histories speak of the harmony time, when Lumori formed bonds with compatible species. Perhaps our ancestors' fear became dogma without purpose. Dogma that has protected us for millennia, countered Voran. Elias felt Shia's frustration through their bond, but also her strategic patience. She had explained that council decisions required unanimous agreement. They needed to convince every elder. May I speak? Elias asked, his voice sounding harsh and primitive in this chamber of silent communication. After a hesitation, Voran inclined his featureless face in permission. On my world, we have a concept called convergent evolution, different species independently developing similar traits because they work. Your archives suggest that what's happening between Shia and me isn't contamination, but natural resonance. The same phenomenon that originally allowed your crystals to flourish. He extended his hand, palm up, displaying the faint luminescence now visible beneath his skin, an unexpected side effect of their deepening bond. I'm changing too. Not becoming Lumori, but something new, something between our worlds. A ripple of astonishment passed through the council. Several moved closer to examine the light patterns flowing beneath his human flesh. Unprecedented, murmured Elder Talus, the council's historian. Even in the harmony time, physical transformation was theoretical only. Shia moved beside him, her fingers intertwining with his. Immediately, the glow intensified, creating patterns that reflected across the chamber walls. I ask permission to attempt full resonance bonding, Shia announced formally. Our calculations suggest a complete neural synaptic fusion could generate enough harmonic energy to repattern the core's fractal structure. The chamber erupted in chaotic color patterns. Shock, fascination, concern. Full bonding has not been attempted in our recorded history, Elder Vorin warned. The process could destroy you both, or save our world, Shia countered. If you succeed, offered Elder Lysith unexpectedly, the council would recognize your authority as first resonator. You would lead us into a new age. The proposal silenced the chamber. First resonator was a position of supreme leadership, unoccupied for generations. Later, alone in Shia's crystalline dwelling, Elias struggled with the implications. They're trying to separate us, he said quietly, offering you leadership if the bonding succeeds, knowing I'd have to leave afterward. Shia's colors shifted to the deep indigo of sorrow. The quantum equations are unequivocal. The energy required for permanent core stabilization would overwhelm your biological systems unless you returned to your natural environment to recover. And if I stayed? Neural cascade failure. Death within days. Elias closed his eyes, feeling the connection between them. No longer just mental, but cellular. His very biology now encoding parts of her resonance patterns. There must be another way. Shia approached, her luminescence dimming to the intimate glow she reserved only for him. When her fingers traced his face, images flowed between them. Not just thoughts, but memories, sensations, desires. I never imagined feeling what humans call love, she admitted. Our kind experiences connection differently, collective, shared, never exclusive. Until you. The word love resonated through their bond, creating new patterns in the light between them. As Shia leaned closer, her featureless face transformed, temporarily forming lips that sought his own. The kiss transcended physical sensation. Elias felt himself falling into her consciousness as she fell into his, their separate identities momentarily blurring into a shared experience of wonder and desire. His hands traced the curves of her luminous form, finding her surprisingly warm, responsive, alive with sensation. We were never meant to find each other across the void. Shia's thoughts whispered within him. Yet here we are, impossible and perfect. As their bodies entwined on the crystalline bed, light coursed between them in ever more complex patterns. The dwelling's crystals resonated in harmony with their passion, creating music from pure light. Physical pleasure amplified their neural connection, until Elias could no longer tell where his consciousness ended and hers began. In that moment of perfect union, a solution crystallized in their shared mind, dangerous, untested, but possible. We don't have to choose between worlds. They realized together, we can create a bridge. Harmonic convergence dawn broke over Lumora's crystal forests, the twin moons still visible as pale ghosts against the violet sky. At the base of the central core, a gathering unlike any in generations had assembled. The entire council, dozens of guardian resonators and hundreds of ordinary Lumori, all pulsing with anticipation. In the center of the massive chamber stood Elias and Shia, hands clasped, surrounded by equipment salvaged from the horizon and integrated with Lumoran crystal technology. The ship's quantum core hummed with potential energy, connected to the planet's crystal matrix through pathways of light. Are you certain? Elder Vorin asked one final time, his patterns showing genuine concern beneath his official demeanor. No, Elias admitted with a wry smile. But certainty is overrated in the face of extinction. Shia's response flowed through both verbal and resonance channels. What we attempt has never been done, but our calculations show a 93% probability of success. She didn't mention the remaining 7%, catastrophic failure that would destroy them instantly. Their plan had evolved from the revelation during their night of passion, The quantum entanglement principles that powered Elias's ship could theoretically create a permanent connection between 2 points in space-time. If they could entangle their neural patterns with this quantum field, while simultaneously using the resonance energy to heal the core, they might create something unprecedented, a harmonic bridge between worlds. Elias would still need to return to Earth space to prevent neural cascade failure, but the entanglement would maintain their connection across any distance. As the preparations concluded, Shia turned to him, her colors shifting to the deep blue that had become her expression of love. No matter the outcome, finding you was worth everything. Elias touched her luminescent face. In my culture, we have a saying, we are all made of stardust. I never fully understood it until now, until I found someone from across the galaxy whose light matches my own. Together, they stepped onto the activation platform. The assembled Lumori began a resonance song, their collective consciousness creating harmonic waves that strengthened the crystal structures surrounding them. Elias felt Shia's mind merge with his own as the quantum field enveloped them. Pain and ecstasy became indistinguishable as their consciousness expanded, encompassing the failing crystal core. Through their shared perception, they could see the fractal patterns of damage and how to heal them. Light erupted from their joined forms, spreading through the crystal network in waves of regenerative energy. The core's fractures began to seal, molecular bonds reforming under the influence of their combined resonance. In that expanded state of awareness, they wove the quantum entanglement through the very fabric of their beings. Elias's human DNA now permanently encoded with Lumeran resonance patterns, Shia's luminescent structure incorporating elements of human neural architecture. The process reached its crescendo as the core fully stabilized, sending a pulse of energy throughout the planet. Crystal spires that had begun to crumble renewed themselves, growing stronger than before. The violet sky briefly shimmered with auroras as excess energy dispersed into Lumora's atmosphere. When the light finally faded, Elias collapsed to his knees, Shia supporting him as his human body struggled to contain the transformation. You must go soon, she communicated, her patterns tinged with both sadness and hope. The entanglement is stable, but your physical form needs time in your natural environment to adapt. The council approached, their surfaces showing patterns of awe and respect. First Resonator Shia, Elder Vorin acknowledged formally, the council recognizes your authority and the debt we owe to both you and your human bonded. 3 days later, the repaired Horizon stood ready for departure. The modifications would allow it to navigate back through the same anomaly that had brought Elias to Lumora, now stabilized by the planet's renewed crystal energy. A crowd of Lumori had gathered to witness the departure, their surfaces shimmering with farewell patterns. Shia stood apart from the others, her newly elevated status marked by intricate light designs flowing across her form. This isn't goodbye, Elias reminded her as they shared one final embrace outside the ship. The quantum entanglement will allow us to communicate across any distance. And more than communicate, she added, her thoughts flowing easily into his mind. With practice, we'll be able to share sensations, experiences, perhaps even visit each other's consciousness across the void. As Elias prepared to board, Shia presented him with a small crystal pendant, a fragment of the core itself, now pulsing in rhythm with both their heartbeats. A physical anchor for our connection, she explained, and a promise that distance is merely an illusion when resonance binds two souls. The horizon rose into Lumora's atmosphere, crystal formations across the planet lighting up in sequential farewell as Elias piloted toward the stabilized anomaly. Through their bond, he could feel Shia's presence as clearly as if she sat beside him, her thoughts, her emotions, her unwavering love. As the ship approached the anomaly's shimmering boundary, Elias touched the crystal pendant at his throat, now glowing with inner light. Until our resonance brings us together again, he whispered, knowing she could hear him across the void. From the planet's surface, Shia sent one final thought before the ship disappeared into the anomaly. Some connections transcend worlds. Ours will echo across the stars forever. The horizon slipped through the boundary between realms, carrying Elias home, changed, transformed, but never truly separated from the luminous being who had shown him that love could bridge even the vast emptiness between worlds. On Lumora, First Resonator Shia turned her gaze to the stars, her surface glowing with the promise of reunion and a future where isolation would give way to harmony once more.